Okay. So you guys have done the tutorial at this point. You do not have to submit it on Blackboard, but go ahead and finish it out and see if you can accomplish one of those extra options that are at the end. See if you can think of the code how to do that, right? Because that's going to set you up for this mini project. So in this mini project, it's going to be very similar to your first two, AKA we need to set up GitHub. You're just submitting that link to me. You don't submit the project files, etc. Okay. You guys will be using Flask to deploy a small web app of your choice. The goal here is to come up with a small web application that meets these requirements down below. All right. If you get stuck, email me. That's why we're doing this on Tuesday. So Thursday is basically a work day. This is the way this week will be set up. All right. You need to have your initial comments, blah, blah, blah at the top. Your proper import, and then using Flask, you need to set up a proper folder structure using the tutorial as an example. Okay. You need to have a minimum of 5 different web pages going through there and a proper template structure for those built in there. So if you have something not like a blog post, but you modify that and you do whatever, you just need 5 routes for me to have to go to. Right? You can have 20, but you need at least 5, right? You need to have at least one page that utilizes a form and has proper get and post route set up. So what that means is I want you to be able to type something in a form. It goes and sends it to the database, checks, see if all that wiring has to be in there in the back. So you may use something like the login out of the tutorial. That's fine, but then have something of your website that actually puts it in. So it sounds like 90% of you guys are gamers. Maybe you guys build a game collection database, right? In which case it pulls the title of your favorite game. It pulls your information about it, and maybe you send a web URL to the cover of the game, whatever it is. Just throwing something out as a small web app, right? When you guys post that, it stores it in the database. You guys got to think of how many columns and things like that you would need for your game, and you could build that out that way. All right. You will need to set up a SQLite database with a minimum of 2 different tables linked with a foreign key, AKA very similar to what you guys just did in the tutorial. So you'll probably have something like a users table, right? Because you want them to be able to log in, do whatever. And then 2 is a table that will store information. Like in the game example I just gave, you call it your game table, and you have all your fields for all the stuff you're going to store about your games. All right. The next 10 points is you need to use Bootstrap in your web templates. I won't dictate what modules you need to use, but you got to practice. So I'm going to do an example on Bootstrap here in just a little bit. All right. One of those modules that you use, you must use a modal. And I'll explain what a modal is here in a little bit. All right. I kind of did this in the wrong order here. I thought I wasn't doing Bootstrap just yet. I am. All right. And then you need to set up some sort of register and login system. Again, you can use the tutorial as an example. All right. But make it yours. Make the page look different than what the tutorial did. So tweak the template, tweak what it looks in. Maybe you're pulling in more information about the user, etc. So on your register page, maybe you don't just want a username and password. Maybe you want first name, last name, phone number, something like that. So more information about the user to build a profile. I don't know, whatever you want to build. Other than that, you have the basics. 5 minimum commits. You guys should have like 40 in this project, right? Because every little piece that we did should have been a commit along the way. Because it's really easy to get stuck in this project. And if you blow something up, you can always revert back to the commit before. All right. I'm going to check out the master branch, have your pip requirements using pip freeze, and a README project to explain what all this is about. Okay. So the only thing I haven't showed you guys is Bootstrap. So let's do that. We're going to tack that right into this mini project one. So what is Bootstrap? Has anybody played with it before?
No, I didn't.
Nope. So do a Google search for Bootstrap and you'll get bootstrap.com. And what Bootstrap allows you to do is have no clue about CSS and be able to build some pretty cool, fast, responsive websites. All right. I am not a web designer. I wouldn't even call myself a coder. I can code, but I'm not a coder. If I want to build websites in a hurry, I use things like Bootstrap. I don't know CSS. I mean, I can read it and I can modify it, but if you ask me to code it from scratch, nope. But do I need to do that? No, right? I mean, there's so many tools out there, whether you start with a template that is Bootstrap, or you go out and get a paid for template, you pay 45 bucks for it, whatever, then use that template, then I'll modify whatever I want. It may look nothing like the template I bought, but the template is there so I can start modifying stuff. That is truly how web development's done. Unless you're building something very particular for a customer and they want it very detailed, then you're going to build all custom CSS. But even then, you're probably going to start with a boilerplate template to get all the things in there. Then you just modify it as you fly along. All right. So how does Bootstrap work, and how does that work with the Flask that we've been playing with? To add your Bootstrap options in, you come down here and in the lower right, you're going to have two CDN links. One is our link. This is our CSS sheet. Then you have a JavaScript file that allows us to do the JavaScript stuff that we want to do with Bootstrap. So how do we do this? We simply come over here and click on copy to clipboard. We go back to, say, our project that we had here. And let's go to our base.html. And at the top, we had this style sheet here, right? So instead of using their style sheet, we're going to actually just comment, or yeah, let's just comment that out for now. Right. And then let's put in our own. We hit Control V. That gets us our link up in that page. And then at the very bottom, outside this section, we need to paste in our script. You can also put that up there in the head as well. I think they usually want that at the bottom these days is the standard. So let's see here, base, nav section here, just put it at the bottom. Okay, so I pasted the script at the bottom. I put my link specifically up here at the top. Now, this is typically in the head of an HTML. Does everybody remember head section in HTML? We don't have that in our template. We should probably do that to make things a little bit easier. So if we come up here and we do /head, right? And inside our head, we need to add a block so that we can add our own stuff to this code. Maybe our own websites need to add stuff. So we do a %block. We're going to call it head. And then we're going to do an end block. And so if you guys remember what this means, this is just a placeholder that's Pythonic-like that allows us to dump code in there on other templates. We're creating an empty container, so to speak, right? We're putting this in there. Then our other templates can say in the block, add this.
Okay.
And that way it automatically dumps it in that section. Now, what's usually inside head? Well, the title and our link spreadsheets are usually in there, right? Our spreadsheets, our style sheets. So we will see something like this. So let's just put that in. Now, the way I have this set up is that later on, if I dump something in the block, it goes before all of this code. So we probably don't want it before, we probably want this after. I paste that in here. Meaning that if you guys have ever used style sheets, it goes in an order, right? It loads them in a specific order. We would always want to add something after our Bootstrap at that point. So Bootstrap lives. Okay, now you could use title head here. We could also use CSS sheets and stick that in a very specific spot. In other words, you can create blocks of whatever you want to create blocks for. Here we use title so that we always had title up there. All right, besides head, what else do you guys normally have? Body, right? So let's do body. Hit enter, and that's going to be all of our nav, our section here for our content. Let's just take this whole section in here, throw this in our body.
Is that
which did not format, right? Give me a second here to grab that body there. There we go. So we have our head. We now have a body. And then what comes after body? The foot, right? If we wanted some kind of foot or something in there. but our script would go down here outside of our body. That's usually the last thing loaded on the page. Okay, so now we can save this, and now all we did was update our base model. It did not affect any of the other templates. We just have the proper HTML files in there, or the sections. So we go out to our website and look at what it created for us, which I closed already, but I can go out there, 127. There we go. So this is what it looks like. Obviously, it looks not that great because we took out our style sheet, right? So for now, let's go ahead and add our style sheet back in here. Just like that. And if we load this website, it will load the style sheet, then it will load Bootstrap on that. Okay. Now, in this login, instead of going to this login page that's very blah, right? When you guys click on a new website and you click a login, what happens? Yeah, it's like a little pop-up that comes up and you guys log in. It's really nice and sleek looking. That is called a modal, is what usually pops up there. So if we go out to Bootstrap and we look at a modal, and they'll have demonstrations of it here. It looks something like this. You got a pop-up, it's got a title, it's got some text, and you got two buttons that you can choose what you want from here. So if we scroll down, you can see that example. I could click on this launch live demo. Looks something like this that pops up. Okay. If we wanted a static modal, looks something like that. That just pops up whenever. Even if I press escape, it doesn't let me out of here. Notice the one before, if it pops up, I hit escape, it takes me back to the site. So the difference between those two is this one doesn't let you out of it. You can click outside of it, doesn't matter. You must hit one of these buttons to get in. Okay. Scrolling long content. This is a modal that if you had a bunch of long content in here, you could do a demo one here. So this has a scroll inside of it. If you want it to be vertically centered, now it's up here in the middle. Right. And if you want it vertically scrollable, you could do this one here. All of these are just little tags, aka CSS, that we're going to tag on here, right? That also dictates our JavaScript as to what we're going to use there. If you wanted a tooltip or a popover, like this button, if I click on it, it gets a little popover. I can get that. If I wanted this as a tooltip, you can see where it pops up over the top. Lots and lots and lots of things you can do. You can use a grid system. So Bootstrap uses this grid system in order to scale everything on a website, right? So you have these containers and it fits in this third, this third, this third, or 1/5 across the screen or something like that. Otherwise, those of you that have done CSS knows that's a nightmare to program in code, right? If you wanted this over here and a column over here and this, it's a nightmare to code that up. So Bootstrap allows you to use this grid system in order to pop it into the grid the way you want to use it. So do a little bit of research on Bootstrap. There again, I can't cover all of Bootstrap in 1 hour. Like it's massive. But you guys can scroll through and get an idea of what this looks for. All right, these are all your different modals. So you open the first modal, which then opens a second, and then back to the first. Lots of different ways to do that. What's nice about those demos like this, they give you the code right here. So you just copy and paste this into your HTML, tweak it the way you want it, and away you run. All right. They're going to have stuff like nav bars, which is a whole lot easier and looks a whole lot cleaner at the top compared to what we were doing before. So if you look at our program, it just looks generic, right? Here, we can build out a whole nav class that has different drop downs. It actually has some animation to it, the search bar, all of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff in Bootstrap. Okay, but the modal is the one that's required in the program. So what we want to do is just have some kind of modal that pops up here and say we wanted it to just be our login, right? So we're going to steal this first code. We're just going to steal these divs. And we want to go to our login page right here. And we have this form in here. So what we're going to do is before we get to that form, or in this case, it dumps it into the content section. Let's look at our base and see what we got in our content section. There we go. We have a header, messages. These are just for errors. Okay, we're good. So login, let's do it inside our content. and we control V this in, and then let's actually get that in the right format here. So it looks good. Okay. And then in here, what we're going to do is look at our header, title. Okay, modal title. What would we call this modal? Login, right? Wasn't a trick question. Good work. So we give it a login header. And then we have a button for button close. We don't probably want that to be close. We probably want that to be something more like, well, we could have close and submit, right? Is really what we want. So we have our save changes. And then here is a P for our modal text, right? Well, we don't want text in there. So we're going to take that out. We are going to grab our form. So we take that, Control X, and paste that up here. So once that's pasted in, how did I blow that up? That did not. Control C. That was my problem. Control X, Control V. There we go. Let's tab that to where it's all in the right format. And so now if we just save this, and then let's go to our website and hit refresh. We lost it all. Let's inspect this. We got our body. We've got our section content. We have a header and our div, and then a modal. Modal header body. Why are we not seeing that? It's just not popped up. We got to have something that actually turns it on. Okay. So we have to have something that actually triggers that modal, right? That makes it pop up. So for us, we would want to have it automatically just always launch when you hold that up. So this should be when we click the login at the top, right? As opposed to going to a whole different page, we wanted to just pull up the modal for that. So let's go back here and let's go to our code. And so it is going to be off our index page, right? When we tell it to click on login, where's our login? That's in our base. There we go. Here's the URL for login. Well, we don't actually want it to go to a URL. We just want it to pop up in a modal. But if we did that, then it wouldn't necessarily, it wouldn't have all the code associated with auth.login. AKA, does that user still exist? Does all that kind of pop up? So can we do it with a login? Probably. Is that the best place to do it here? It's a little complicated, right? So if we undo our login here, and I did this on purpose, by the way. The idea is that you'll see that sometimes that's maybe not the best place to do that. To where we just have our block content. That's all good. We go back to our website, make sure it works like it was originally. Here, refresh. There we go. All right. So instead of doing that, what's another thing that we could do to give us a modal in this?
Something when like the user already exists. Yeah, like for your
There you go, the error messages, right? So if that error pops up, we need to be able to trigger something that goes up there. Let's go look at our error code. All right, that's probably going to be in our base. And where do we get our messages? That's here. So let's double check that section, AKA generate an error. There's this. We right click and inspect. Notice this is in our flash section here, right? Which is under our header before our form. So let's go look at our flash section. And that's right here. Form message, flash, create your own div class. So instead of this generating those messages, and that's when we send it to the page, right? We had to hit login. It had some error, send us back to that website with that error so that it would fill in that spot. Everybody see how that logic worked? If not, let's take a look here real quick. So let's go to auth. Let's go to login. And when we hit post, AKA hit login, it's going to check to do this. If it doesn't work, it generates an error, right? Incorrect username, incorrect password. right? In this case, we're not logging in. I think we're on the register page, but it's the same concept. If error is none, then iterate this. We did have one username required, password required. We also had this database integrity error that says user is already registered. All right. Now, a modal is one way that we could use that in there. Turns out Bootstrap actually has one that's specifically meant for that. And it is called, just have to find it here, alerts. All right. And so an alert will pop up with an alert if something goes through. So if I click on show a live alert, see how it just popped up that right on the website. And so for that, we have to have some kind of JavaScript that'll actually pop up that alert and get us in there. If we click on a link, it could set some different links in there. You could have this when you hit submit, that kind of stuff. So we have this alert. If we want to do a primary alert, it's really simple. All we have to do is shove. Do we want primary? Not primary. We want danger, right? AKA we wanted it red. So we go back in here. We take this code in our HTML, which was in our login page. Nope, base. There we are. And instead of this little simple div class using our own CSS, we just paste in the one that uses Bootstrap. So we take this and let's undo that real quick because I took out the thing. So I was showing you the logic. I bounced around there. Apologize. Let's go back to our auth. So what happens is it sends that to our template, and in there is a error message that gets popped in, right? So if we look at our base template, get flashed messages is something that will go and get all of the messages that were stored in error. Then it does a simple for loop to go through each one of those errors as it comes in. Then we're going to use this here to grab that message and dump it in HTML on the screen, right? So if we take this out and dump in our Bootstrap portion, this part here, which is this text string, we now remove this text string and just put in our message. And to make this easier to read, we can do something like that. So we save that. We look at our page. Let's go back, log in, refresh. And now we have incorrect username that comes up here in the format that is our Bootstrap. So it raised this error up here at the top. Okay, so if we go in here, just go to the main website there, /auth/login. There we go. Throw in our errors, log in, and it pulls it up in that pink text that we already have. But instead of us guessing what colors, there's pre-built in ones already with Bootstrap. All right. So you would still need to find a good place for a modal. This could be something like an About Us page, something simple, right? So let's do something like an About, and then it would just pull up this modal in there. So to do that, if we come down here and we grab this text, and where's a good place for About? Well, that's probably on our overall base, right? We can just do something like About up here. So let's go to our base code. And we need a link for an About, and that will be here in this Flaskar header, right? This is our username, log out, log in, register. We want About to be there no matter whether we're logged in or not, right? So therefore, we would put that after our INF right here. And if we look at the way this is coded, we need to give it a LI. Anybody remember what LI is? List item, right? So let's get that formatted in there correctly. And then inside our list item, we have an aref, which is going to give us our link. Not sure why they don't close their list items here, but they don't. Bad code. Close out your list items. Okay. So we need to copy that similar type aref so that we have an idea of a template. Again, you don't need to know HTML. You just need to know how to copy and paste. And this has to specifically be there. Okay. So we don't want it to go to the URL for auth login. We want it to have the text of what? About us. Sure. Something like that. And instead of it actually going to this href and all that, what we want to do is steal the code in Bootstrap that handles that for us. So if we scroll down, it is this button trigger up here, right? So we don't necessarily want a button trigger. We just want to know this data modal. Here's our target example modal, right? So let's just store it as a button. Why not? We can always tweak it later. So take out the li. Sorry for all that I just said. And let's just throw in a button up there. All right. And this button isn't launch exam modal. This is our about us. Okay. Now, if we look at these tags that they have set up for this button, for example, they have a type button. Button class is primary, which means in Bootstrap, that's going to be blue, right? Primary color is blue. If we want a red one, we can change that from primary to something else. All right. And if you scroll down here, you would see all the colors and the things that you could set it to. All right. So with that one in there, we now need our modal code. So let's go ahead and steal our modal. And in this one, that is in there. That's our body outside our nav. We can just paste that in here for our content. Okay. So what's the glue? When we click on this, we have a data toggle of modal, and we want to set our target to hashtag example modal, which is why down here, you'll see that this one is hashtag example modal. All right. Right there, ID example modal. So we would change that if we had a bunch of modals on our page. We wouldn't want to keep it example modal, but it's fine for what we're doing here. So now in our modal title, what would we say? Something like about us, right? And then inside our message body, we could put in whatever we wanted. So this would be something like, this is our cool blog post tutorial from class. I don't know. I'm making something up here real quick because I know you guys will be on class. In our footer, we have our secondary for closing, and we have our primary, which is basically save changes. We don't necessarily need a save changes one, so we're going to kill that one, right? We just want to close the modal if we want it. All right. This is all in here. If we save it, and then we come back to our main website, and let's go back to here. Notice how we got the about us. That about us is there regardless of whether we are logged in or not, because we did it at the end. So if I log in here, see how it stays up there in the upper right? We click on about us, boom, we got an about us, we got some text, and just a close button. All right, something like that in your project. Maybe there's a reason for you to put that in there. Pop over of, so like for me, like say you did back to our game example that we talked about, right? If they clicked on the game title, it should then pop up with a modal, which then has the picture of whatever that game is, or maybe more detailed information about that particular game. Use it as a way of describing more text about that game. Clear as mud?
Yeah, it's gotta play with a little bit.
Yep.
Video.
There you go.
Not the video.
So I'll stop this recording.